Welcome. This is a short tutorial showing you how to use the DairyWatbal software for designing your effluent ponds for dairies. So the site, once you go to the home page, you will need to register an account to put in your details, and you then need to log in. And once you've done that, we go to assess your pond design now, and that'll take us into our list of analyses. Now, because this is the first time I'm using this software, I have no analyses here. So we need to create one. We can either click on the little plus button here or the create new analysis. So let's do that. This then takes us into the analysis page. Now this has already created analysis for us with pre-filled data. All of the data that you'll see in here are the just default settings, and I'll show you now how we go through and update these. First of all, I'll just show you the components of this analysis page. On the left hand side here we have a summary of key parameters for this analysis, and if you put your cursor over any of these icons it'll tell you what each one of these are. Then we have a series of checks here. Now these are all black at the moment, and that's what we want to see. If there's any issues with the pond design that the software detects, it will highlight these in red, and it will tell you what the issue is and sometimes even suggest how to fix that. The main part of the page is split up into two sections. We have a series of inputs at the top of the page for different parts of our dairy system, and then we have a series of outputs at the bottom. And note that these are also tabbed, that we have these 5 tabs at the bottom to switch between to look at different outputs. The first time you click the tab it will actually calculate or do some processing for that page. But after you go, then when you go back, it's already loaded into memory. So let's now have a look at these inputs in a bit more detail. Each of these tabs here represents a different component of the farm system. The first tab here, we provide general information. You can put some notes about this analysis in here. We can enter a name by owner, so say this is McClymont. You'll see that when you change these things, the different aspects of the page will be updated. We have the option here to select a single or primary and storage type effluent system. So currently we've got single selected. If we select primary and storage, you'll notice that it will change the tabs on the inputs here, that we now have a 5A and 5B representing our primary pond and storage pond. Let's go back to a single pond for this analysis. So one of the important options on this page is the location button, which allows us to pull in long-term climate data from the silo database, which is located on the Long Paddock website of Queensland Government. So this data is patch point data. It's interpolated where records are missing. It's infilled. Now click this button here and it will open up a dialog, and that'll allow us to search for our location. We can do it visually from the map. If we select the state is one easy way of getting into this, and then zoom into where we're interested, and we can click on any of these dots on here to pull in that climate data, or we can use the search tool here. So if I was looking for a location at Shepparton, type in Shepparton and I can select, just click on the name, and that will bring in the climate station data. It actually stores it on our server. It pulls it in from Long Paddock and stores it in on our server, and it does it for the length of record that's defined in the next row. So we've got the option of pulling in different periods of climate data. We recommend choosing from 1970 till now, the last 50 years. Earlier than that tends to notice a shift in our climate patterns. It will influence the results, so it's worth having a play with this. Every time I change this, it will pull down a new climate file from Silo. Next, if we go to our farm details tab, this is where we define the management of our dairy with the cows milked, the milk production, manure collection and flushing. Now, one of the options here is input format. If we click on this, we're able to select either the annual average values, or we can put in monthly values if we have that available. By clicking on this spanner, at the side, we're able to change all columns at the same time. So it's a quick way of pre-filling all that data. For this example though, I'm going to select the annual averages. Now there's a little question mark beside each parameter. If you put your cursor over, you will get a tooltip, and that gives you some information about that parameter. Next, if we go on to our pond catchment, we can define different areas for runoff into our primary pond, and the diversion type. So these categories here, there's information about what each of these diversion types are under the help icon. So yep, once we fill that out, we can then go on to our effluent pre-treatment. We've got a range of treatment options here: a stationary screen, screw press, traffical trap, and other. Okay, and that works out the amount of total solids and volatile solids removed from the sheds. Now, after having put that in, we then go and put in our pond dimensions. So we actually put in a total storage volume, which is represented by the blue portion on our diagram, or schematic diagram below. The total volume on this diagram represents the total storage volume plus the freeboard volume. So we put in key characteristics or key dimensions here, including our batters are both lengthwise and breadthwise, and that will then calculate the remaining dimensions on that pond. The very last input option here is our irrigation, and we need to select both a crop type and the soil that we're irrigating. Now, this list will grow over time. We'll keep adding more and more crops and soils into these, but make sure you set up something or select something that's representing your conditions. We select a method of irrigation and the irrigated area. Then we have pumping information, including the minimum number of hours we can pump in a day and the maximum number of hours. We can shandy our effluent water with clean water as well. We select an amount of effluent mix. And then we also have to define the soil water triggers that fires an irrigation in the simulation. So the 50 millimetres here represents, in the month of January, we will irrigate if the soil water deficit reaches 50 millimetres. We can turn off particular months by excluding certain periods. So if we pick this option during window, we can then pick an exclusion period, and you can see that if we go down and have a look at our irrigation, you can see at the moment we're excluding this June to August period, and there's no irrigation occurring at that point. So if I turn this off, you'll see that we now have irrigation in that period, so we can set up an exclusion period. Looking at our outputs here, for the single pond here, we do have some summary information about the spilling events. Now in this case here, the maximum value on this chart is equal to the total storage volume here, and you can see that we're not getting anywhere near up to the top, so we're using quite a lot of water, and our pond's never getting full. Going down to our outputs below, one of the powerful ones here is the time series output, where we can overlay different time series, including rainfall and soil water, as well as our irrigation. We can use the little timeline below to pan through history. We can drag and resize these bars to get an overview, or we can zoom right in and get some detail. When you put your cursor over this, it will tell you what any value is. You can see that it's hot tracking through and updating the values. The second output tab here is really our irrigation, or what's happening in our paddock. We can see how much effluent we're applying. We can see the rainfall and evaporation and transpiration that occurred. This chart here represents the green cover profile. Because it's a pasture, a perennial, it doesn't change really. It's over the period of the year, and our residue cover also remains very low. We go on to our farm tab, and this is, I guess, the detailed output from the simulation. Any of the parameters in green here are inputs, and any of the blue ones are calculated. Then we have our single pond statistics, and it's got a detailed summary of outputs, and it includes a water balance of that pond. Finally, we have our spill events table, and in this case here we're not getting any spills, but that would actually list the major spill events over time. Having completed our analysis, we might want to share this with someone. If we click on this button in the top right hand corner of the screen, we can type someone's email address in, and that will then share that with that person. They will get an email with a link, and when they go into that analysis, they won't be able to edit any details, but they'll be able to view all of the outputs. So if they wanted to make changes to that, they'll need to come up to this little tools menu at the top here and hit duplicate analysis, and that'll make a copy of that analysis, and then they're free to edit that. Then that's their own copy. Under this tools menu, there's also a couple of other things. We've got the ability to delete the analysis. So say for example I wanted to delete this, we actually have to type the word delete so that you're not going to delete things by mistake. Now I'll go into my copy that I just made, and also we've got the option here to generate a report. If we click this, it'll open in a new tab, and this report is able to be printed, or we can save it as a PDF using the inbuilt browser tools. So if I click the print button over here, this is on a Mac computer, but I have an option here to save as PDF. Okay, so I'll cancel that one. So one more thing, let's just go back to our analysis listing page. Now we can either hit the back key here, or we can click on analysis at the top. I'll hit the back key, and we're now presented with will be a list of all of the analyses that we've done, and it provides this graphical representation of that with some of the key figures about that analysis. Now we have some tools here to allow us to filter the results that are shown here, and also sort the order of them, and we can also search if we have a large number. I'll just quickly create another analysis. Click on the plus symbol. So this is my second one. I'll call this second analysis. Now when I go back to the analysis page, we can see we've got two here. This is the one that I just created. Now one of the options under source is favorites. Now you can see a little star here. If I click that as my favorite, and then I filter on my favorites, you can see that the other one disappears. So have a play with those. Anyway, I hope it works well for you and you find it useful. Thank you.